There's no like completely unambiguous set of rules by which you will know something will be funny, just in the same way there's no unambiguous set of rules which mean this will be a great poem or indeed a great experiment.
Yes.
But it's also, I think, when you were talking about these experiments, I mean, we've done some of this stuff in my lab on grammar learning, artificial grammar learning, and it seems to be a parallel with grammar here. I know when an English sentence is grammatical, but I don't know the rules of English grammar.
Right.
Yeah.
But the grammatical knowledge is in there somewhere. It has to be accessed indirectly. And what you were describing was a kind of a process. To me, I read that as a process for learning the grammar of comedy, which becomes inaccessible in exactly the same way that my grammatical knowledge of English.
It's interesting. You see, when I first got interested in comedy, someone at Sussex, Brian Bates, said I was to read some research that had been done in the 70s at Berkeley by a guy called McWinney, I think his name was. And he was fascinated with architects, and he went round all the architects and said, what do you do from the moment you get up in the morning to the moment that you go to bed at night? And he did that, first of all, with all the ones who were regarded by their contemporaries as very creative. And then he went round, although he didn't tell them, and asked the same question to a bunch of architects who were in no way outstandingly creative. And there were only two differences. The architects who were very, very creative knew how to play. And the ones who didn't know how to play. And the other thing is that the creative people always postponed a moment of decision as long as they could. They were not oblivious of the outside world. And when I read that they play, I read a book called Homo Ludens, by what's his name? Heisinger, the waning of the Middle Ages. And he was defining what play, and he says play has to be separate from ordinary life. A bit like a football match, if you see what I mean, because the players are separate on the pitch, and when the whistle goes, a certain lot of rules take over that go on taking over until the whistle goes at the end, and then you're back to ordinary life again. And that's why in the creativity book I'm saying what you have to do is to get away from ordinary life. You've got to be away from interruptions, because interruptions are absolute death to creativity.
And in psychology, psychiatry, and creativity, in all these areas, it's much more important to say what people should not do than what they should do. And we have this idea that negation is, well, negative. But actually negation, limitation, resistance to things is actually how things come into being. I've said something about this before, so I won't repeat that. But often when somebody's got a problem in psychological or psychiatric realm, you can't tell them what to do, but you can say, but what you're doing is this, isn't it? You recognize you repeatedly do this. How about just simply not doing that and giving room for something to happen? And I think creativity is like, to come back to a metaphor earlier today, gardening, in the sense that no gardener can make a plant or make it grow. Their choices are to stifle the plant or not to stifle the plant. And if you want not to stifle the plant, you move the weeds out and give it space and so on. But the plant does the growing. And we are organisms, and these kinds of thinking are organic. They're not rule-following. And when I wrote my very first book called Against Criticism, I was talking to a Chinese scholar, a lovely, modest, kind man called David Hawkes, now sadly no longer with us. And he put me on to the fact that there's an important tract from about the 3rd century in China in which the writer talks of the method of no method. And this seemed to me absolutely key to what I was trying to communicate, is that all our systematic approaches were misguided. I think I'm getting the message that we probably need to wrap up.
We have one last question.
Okay.
Very quickly,